Recently, new rumors and leaks about the next versions of Resident Evil have been leaked. These rumors were raised by the famous leaker of Resident Evil series. Most of his leaks from Resident Evil were true. For example, one of his famous leaks was the making of a remake of Resident Evil 4, which was announced a few months after the rumor that the Resident Evil 4 remake trailer was introduced. Now, Dusk Golem has recently released a new leak about Resident Evil 9, which we will review in this video. And we will also review the next versions that are likely to be introduced and the new rumors that have come out of Resident Evil during this time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go to the video. Dusk Golem, the famous leaker of Capcom, who most of his leaks about Resident Evil come right out of the water, recently said that Resident Evil 9 will be officially unveiled in the summer of 2024 and will also be released in 2025. Also, this leaker started from Resident Evil 7, as he said. Capcom plans to release an important version of Resident Evil every 2 years. For example, Resident Evil 7 was released in 2017, Resident Evil 2 was released in 2019, Resident Evil 4 was released in 2021, and finally Resident Evil 4 was released in 2023, and 2 years later, in 2025, we will see Resident Evil 9, and in 2027 we will see another remake of this franchise. In addition to this talk, this leaker said that next year, 2024, we will see a new IP from Capcom. It is not clear what the IP will be, but in the meantime, we may see a new version of Devil May Cry or Dino Crisis. So it is very likely that the next version, Resident Evil 9, will be released in 2025. Of course, this is a rumor, but most of the leaks about this leak are true and we have to wait for the trailer of Resident Evil 9 next summer. If we want to check very precisely when Resident Evil 9 will be released in 2025, if we look at the previous series, i.e. Village and remake versions, all the previous versions were released from the beginning of the year until April. So, Resident Evil 9 will be released somewhere around this time, that is, early 2025. So now the release date of Resident Evil 9 has probably been determined. In the middle of this, a question arises whether Capcom will release another version next year, i.e. 2024, 1 year before Resident Evil 9? If you want my opinion, I have to say no. Because Capcom has planned to unveil the Resident Evil 4 Remake DLC this year and release it at the beginning of the year, and exactly a few months after the release of the Resident Evil 4 Remake DLC, it will introduce a trailer of the Resident Evil 9 Remake, which is planned for the release date of 2025. Also, Capcom is present at Tokyo Game Show 2023 and it is not unlikely that we will see a trailer of Resident Evil 4 Remake DLC. This ceremony is 4 days and will be held from September 21st to 24th. Also, some say that it is possible that Capcom will unveil the next version apart from Resident Evil 4 DLC, which may be the next Resident Evil remake, or one of the sub-versions of this series, for example, Resident Evil Revelations 3 and Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake. In my opinion, only Capcom will unveil Resident Evil 4 Remake DLC, and the next version will be Resident Evil 9, which will be introduced in 2024. On the other hand, it is possible that another version will be introduced, such as the remake of Code Veronica and Revelations 3. Now, why are these two versions very likely to be introduced? First of all, there were leaks and rumors about Resident Evil Revelations 3 a few years ago, and even these days there are rumors about it. It is possible that Capcom has put aside this version due to the development of Resident Evil 4 Remake and focused a lot on Resident Evil 4 Remake, and after the release of Resident Evil Revelations 3, we may have a new version of the Revelations sub-series. In the sequel, Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake may also be introduced. The reason is that Capcom held a survey some time ago that asked the fans which version would you like to be a remake? And the fans voted the most for Code Veronica's remake. Capcom also said in an interview that we are considering a future expansion of the Resident Evil series so that a large audience can enjoy it. He further said that it seems that Code Veronica's version is popular with the audience, and the fans wanted to remake this version. Therefore, the possibility of a remake of Code Veronica's is very high, and we will hear a lot of news about Resident Evil Code Veronica's remake in the future. We all know that Resident Evil 5 Remake is under construction, or if it is not under construction, Capcom has included this project in its future plans. Some people believe that this version does not need a remake, or will not be a remake, but if you have experienced Resident Evil 4 Remake, the end of it has indirect references to the next version, Resident Evil 5, so Capcom is looking to remake this version as well. When will this version be released? It is not known, but in my opinion, Resident Evil 5 Remake will be introduced after Resident Evil 9, and now it is too early to release the remake of this version. So now you have to wait for Resident Evil 5 Remake. If we make a short conclusion from this video, it should be said that Resident Evil 4 DLC will be introduced and released this year, or it will be released in early 2024. It is possible to introduce the versions of Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake and Resident Evil Revelations 3 this year or next year, and if they are not introduced, the next version of Resident Evil will be Resident Evil